30 seconds before we officially start. But if you would, go ahead and place your name and campus in the chat. And also ensure that your first and last name, as it appears on Fortis's roster, that your screen name shows the same. I have something that's popped up on my screen here. Let me see. Can I get it off here? I think I got it off my screen. I'm not sure where that came from. So good evening to everyone. We will call it official start time. Hopefully everyone is doing well. So if you would, give you a few minutes to place your name and campus in the chat. In addition to that, please check your screen name and ensure that your first and last name is correct. Sometimes when you log in other devices, it'll have, everything but your first and last name. And then also make sure that is your first and last name that's on Fortis's roster. These sessions are recorded, and the attendance administrators, of course, they look at the rosters and everything. And if the name doesn't match, we don't want to, it be said that you were not here. So always take the time to look at your screen name and make sure that it matches. Give you a few minutes to get all of that done. So someone says the video is not working. You may need to log out and log back in because something had just popped up on my screen. I'm not sure what it was. It's connectivity. Sometimes, we don't know, can't explain it. So just try to log out and log back in to see if that will help. And that's good. As always, if you're having any technical issues, connectivity issues, or any issues, which we'll talk about it in our PowerPoint here, always communicate that to the instructors so that we'll know what's going on. So on my end, when I look at it, like I go to my square, go to the right side, and a button pops up that says mute, and then there's another button or square that has three little dots in it. Click the three dots. So go to your picture on the screen. There are two squares. One says mute and one has three dots. When you click the three dots, rename should be one of the options. If you click rename, it'll give you the option to go in and type what you need to type. Make sure you place your name and campus in the chat.
Our first name is okay.
First and your last name. We don't want any mix-ups. Like I said, the attendance administrators, they look at this, and we don't want any question about whether or not I was here. Put your first and last name as it appears on Fortis's roster. Sometimes some are going through a name change. If it has not officially happened, put whatever's on Fortis's roster. We don't want any doubt in anybody's mind whether or not Shalisha was here. We want to make sure. So make sure however you're listed on their roster until that official name change has happened, your first and your last name. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Good evening again to everyone. I'm Dr. Ford. Welcome to Care of the Elderly, the older adult, geriatrics. They have all these terms out there. And so, nevertheless, it does mean a person that has reached a certain age. Go ahead and share my screen. So we will take our first break at the top of the hour or the end of the hour, however it goes. So once we've been in class an hour, we'll stop and take our first 5 minute break, and then we'll just press on from there. Share my screen here. As always, these sessions are recorded and they are viewed by the attendance administrator. So just make sure that we are appropriate for this setting and for the beginning. Okay, here we go. So welcome to the January term 2026. What is online learning? Online learning to me is that the only difference is we're really just not in the same physical space, but really all the requirements, the taking ownership in your learning, completing the assignments, having that um, therapeutic relationship with your teammates, your team, with the instructor is really the same. It's just that we're not all in the same brick and mortar at the same time. Online learning means using the computer and internet access. And we know, like I mentioned early on, if you're having any connectivity issues, it used to be just when the weather was bad, but now it's just a daily thing sometimes. So if you're having any issues, please just put a message in the chat so that we will have documentation. Again, when the attendance administrators look at, you're logging into the waiting room, or if you had to left, had you to drop out of class and you weren't able to log back in, send an email, create that paper trail, because all those things are looked at, and we'll look at that time component in a couple of more slides. Why it's so important to document, send that message to me, and capture if you're having issues. And sometimes logging out, turning that device off, and turning it back on. I don't know what happens, but sometimes it helps. But nevertheless, we have a computer and an internet, and that helps us to do this online learning. In our platform, we use Zoom. Zoom is timestamped, so if you log into the waiting area, you are there. And then sometimes there's a small delay with you actually getting into the main course, but that's fine. You're in that waiting area. So it's timestamped. So it's validated what time you actually logged in. The online instructor has interaction with the students throughout the course using online resources. The online instructor provides students guidance and leads the learning activities. The instructor provides feedback to the students about their progress. So there are many times we'll ask you to use the chat, we'll ask you to come off mute to give a verbal response. Sometimes you'll be in breakout rooms, small groups, and we'll come back to the main group. And we do ask that you share. This is a safe space. So in the event that you answer incorrectly, we're not going to leave you hanging out there. We're on a team. We're all trying to get somewhere. We're all trying to provide that best care to our patients. We want to sit for that NCLEX, that one time and pass. We want you to pass your HESI, be successful in this course. So don't be afraid to respond, because I will provide the feedback and we'll get you to where you need to be. The online course includes weekly homework assignments and learning activities. And I will say this several times, every point matters, you all. There is no extra credit, there's no extra work. So every learning activity, let your responses be your best. Remember, we'll look at this also in some slides going forward. There's no rounding. Not because I don't want to round, not because you don't want to round, because that contract that we have, the guidebook, the rule book, it says it has to be a 78% without rounding. So every point matters, you all. The online course includes those weekly homework assignments, learning activities. We have 5 quizzes, and then we have 3 exams, 3 unit exams. And then, of course, we have the HESI. You are responsible to complete your required coursework every week. Go ahead and set your calendars, electronic, paper. Most of us have both, whatever works for you. And feel free to turn things in early. You don't have to wait until that 11:59 mark, before you hit the send button. Just go ahead and get that done and mark that off your list. Of course, you will meet students from other Fortis College locations in this course. So there are some things that are campus specific. I will tell you this, and I'll mention this again. Week 11, HESIs are campus specific. So when we get to that point, just go ahead and put a star or something on your calendar, because your week 11 is going to look a little bit different from the rest of the term. The rest of the term, we're going to meet here on Wednesdays at our whatever time is scheduled. But on week 11, you take that HESI. and it's campus specific. It's dependent on their availability. So, more than likely, HESIs, not to my knowledge, haven't been given this time of night. And most of the time is not on the day that you usually take that class. So you have to think about work, school, all those responsibilities that you have. So put an asterisk by week 11 because you may have to adjust some things. Because more than likely, you will not be taking your HESI on Wednesday during this time. So just put a pin in that, and we'll talk more about that. For any issue, and any issue is any issue, you fill in the blank. That also includes computer access, course questions, grading concerns. You want to start with the instructor, and this goes for all of your courses. And you can find that information about your instructor for all of the courses under the tab that says about your instructor. And so you can take a snapshot of it, but just know that if you can log into Canvas, that information is there. So for continued concerns in your online course, your instructor is first and foremost, and then the course lead, and then our online dean. Dean Brown information is there as well. And then, of course, you have each campus has their own campus deans, and then each campus, for the most part, have that assistant dean. So you have the instructor, you're the course lead, Dean Brown, and then your two campus deans. So at least 5 people that you can reach out to. But first and foremost, just start with me. And then if it's something that I don't have an answer to, can't resolve, of course, we're going to move it forward anyways, because our whole point of being here is to assist you along your way. So communication etiquette and netiquette. We do want to state our thoughts, courteous, positive, and respectful manner. We want to be mindful of how we express humorous and emotional statements because sometimes it can be misinterpreted. There could be no harm intended, but the way that it is received, it could be misinterpreted. So we just want to stick to the concepts and make sure that all the things that we're talking about are relevant to the concepts and the discussion topics that we are discussing. We do want to be considerate of others' experiences and feelings and perspectives. We do want to use proper body language, verbal language. We don't want to use slang and titles because sometimes things mean words or phrases mean different things. And I might not know what it means, and vice versa. So we will just stick to whatever the proper language and titles are. Of course, do not type in all caps because this gives an impression that we're yelling when we type like that. So when you send those emails or text messages or whatever, take the time to take the cap lock off. So uniform and personal appearance policy. And this is connected also to your professional grade that you get every week. So students must be appropriately dressed and groomed, portraying a clean professional appearance. No pajamas, see-through, or revealing clothing. If students do not maintain this policy, we will have to revert to the campus classroom policy of uniforms. Remember, these sessions are recorded. I say this often because I don't want anything to be recorded that we shouldn't be seeing or hearing. So just keep that in mind. Just make sure that we are dressed appropriately and we are adhering to that because these sessions are recorded. We provide the link so that you can go back and view the recording. So it's out there on YouTube. So just make sure that we are appropriate. Alcohol, tobacco, and drug use and testing policy. So I want to take the time to read through all these slides, you all, and answer questions. If you have questions, put them in the chat and I'll stop periodically to stop and look and see what's in the chat and address those questions. The inappropriate use of legal substances such as vaping, tobacco, marijuana, and edibles in tolerant states, alcohol, and certain prescribed medications as determined by the Dean of Nursing is prohibited and will not be tolerated under any circumstances. Students are forbidden from vaping, smoking, using tobacco products, including oral tobacco, and using marijuana, even in tolerant states. While in uniform, including after school activities and while in public. Because I know sometimes, or I know in most schools that you have these different settings to get your clinical hours. So you're in these different settings and you might have to be in your uniform per se, but you have your name badge on. So just keep that in mind. Even though it's an after school activity, but you're still there representing yourself as that student nurse. And we don't want to project a negative image on healthcare overall. Students are forbidden from using these products while in their street clothes, on campus, or at the clinical site. Because there are some clinical sites you don't have to be in uniform. But just remember, that it is forbidden. The virtual classroom is a classroom and is respected as such as well. Okay, the online courses that have specific start and end times. I think by now all of the schedules have been worked out or it has been resolved. But in the event that you have an issue, for example, a student might have had clinical that's going to overlap with a start time of a class. If that's you, if you have two classes, because one time we had one class, for example, ended at 4:30, and the next class started at 4:30. And I don't know, that student or several students happen to be in both of those classes. So if that's something that has not been addressed before today, please send us an email so that we can, try to find a resolution to it or for it. It may be that you may need to be in a different section. But I think but because we know these things have happened in the past, we kind of just work those things out. But nevertheless, if you are one of those students that there is a conflict with your specific start time for your classes, not just this class, any class, please communicate that tonight because we need to resolve that because we'll see about why that time thing matters in a couple of slides. The online courses have specific start times and end times. A lot of times with the end time, we try to not use up all of our break time throughout the class and we try to push majority of the time toward the end. But if we just need to have a break and use up all of our time before the end, we have that specific end time. Your classes are scheduled on a specific day with a start and an end time. These are mandatory live sessions, just like your campus classes are. They are mandatory. We meet one day a week. And if you have an absence of one absence equals 7 days because we only meet one day. So it's very important that you log in and you're here on time. Standards of student professional conduct, academic integrity. All incidences of academic dishonesty and violations of academic integrity will be disciplined. Such acts, everything can't be listed here, but these are some examples. Cheating, plagiarism. Let me stop and talk about this for a little bit. So if you have completed, let me read the definition first that they have here. It says submission of work of another person for credit or failure to properly cite references for any work which is not original to the student. Copying the work of others, allowing another student to copy from the student. So there are some assignments, like this is older adults. So you probably have talked about some of these concepts. You may even have had an assignment that was similar in mid-third or in P's. It was similar. And so some of your sources might be the same, but I encourage you to properly cite in text and on the reference page, re-paraphrase if you can, because what's going to happen is you're going to plagiarize yourself. If you have, for one, completed the same assignment and submitted the same assignment, and for two, if you did not go back in and re-paraphrase and properly cite. So you can also plagiarize yourself, especially if you have submitted a similar or the same assignment. So just make sure that you're going back in and rephrasing. You may even want to get some new sources just so it lessens the chance of your plagiarism score being there because it is considered misconduct. Unauthorized use of notes or materials in exams, including talking to other students. We shouldn't be taking pictures of exams, questions, and posting them and going to these different sites. So we'll talk about that in a minute also. Forging or altering assignments, unpermitted collaborations, giving or receiving aid on a take-home exam or other academic assignment under circumstances in which a reasonable person should have known that such aid was not permitted. So this word reasonable. So what that means, if a person in the same or similar situation, how would they have responded? And if all 6 people responded the same way, then that's considered reasonable. But if not, then that's not considered reasonable. And so therefore it would be considered professional misconduct. Allowing others to copy or use work that is not his or her own. It's like, well, how do you know that? Well, sometimes students or people copy people's names. And then plus when you run it through the plagiarism checker, it picks it up. And then sometimes people's names and everything is still there. We do give sometimes examples, but it's not so that it can be directly copied and pasted and turned in as one on work. So providing answers from graded assignments to others. Again, all acts cannot be listed here, but if it's not your original work and if you're not citing and referencing the information that you have, is considered as misconduct. Okay, so use of these sites do not promote honor, ethics, or integrity. So all the sites are not listed here, you all. And I don't know who it is, but this is real. There is someone that sits there and watches the clicks on these sites. Someone or something. I don't know if it's AI or not. But the point being, don't be tempted to even go and just say, let me see what they're doing on course here. What they talking about is on these sites. Please don't go there. Because these sites they are being monitored. Being found on these sites will place you on heightened monitoring of your work for academic integrity violations. What that means is once they see, hey, Daffy Duck, Donald Duck was on the site, so to speak, that person, Donald Duck name is pinged, and therefore all the work, all the other clicks are being monitored. These things are being monitored. And this is real. Referencing these sites or submitting work found on these sites will result in a zero for the assignment. And it may be enough to cause a course failure. But for sure, a second incident involving these sites will result in a course failure. Just stay away from them. Don't even look around and try to figure out what they're looking at. Just stay away from them. Utilizing these sites, posting and downloading will put you at risk of being dismissed from the program. Your campus and upper administration will also be involved. So this is a short list. Of course, there's so many sites you can't list them on here. So if they are not in your list of resources in your course shell, do not use them. So that's just a good rule of thumb. Like, well, okay, I need a whole list. Well, let's flip it. Just use the resources that are on your list and just stick with that for the course. So there are just too many of them. Just stay away from them, you all. A buzzer will not go off. You more than likely will not receive an email, but if you click on those sites, someone knows, and it's something that indicates that you looked on there. So just stay away from them. Artificial intelligence, we know AI is a thing. So, but it may only be used as an approved by the instructors on a selected assignment. You, the student, must disclose all AI use and must submit their original work along with the AI enhancements when the assignment is submitted for grading. Students may not submit only AI-generated assignments. So this is saying you can use AI once it's approved, but then we have to have your original work and the AI-generated assignment submission. So the American Nurses Association Code of Ethics for nurses, the Code of Ethics serves the following purpose. It is a succinct statement of ethical values, obligations, duties, professional ideas of nurses individually and also collectively. It is the profession's non-negotiable ethical standards, honor system. It is an expression of nurses' own understanding of its commitment to society. We have a commitment to society to serve and to do our best. So late work policy. Submit your work on time, because if you have a perfect paper or submission, you'll get all your points. What did I say early on? Every point matters. Late work, but in the event, things happen. In the event that an issue is arising or has arisen, put it in writing, communicate to the instructor. Late work is only accepted with prior approval. Have to contact the instructor if you're going to be late. You must contact us if you're going to be late. So what'll happen? We'll hear whatever it is the reason that you're going to be late. You'll gain that approval. But that perfect paper, if it's turned in 1 day, 2 days, three, up to 7 days late, the most you can receive is a 10% minus whatever that perfect submission was. So, for example, if your work would have been 100%, had you turned it in on time, you notified the instructor, you got the prior approval, you turned it in on day one late, day two late. The highest that you can make on that assignment is a 90 because, yes, you have approval to turn it in late, but that 10% deduction is also part of that. And then 8 or more days, that assignment is null and void. A zero will be the result of that assignment if it's 8 or more days late. So attendance in online courses, attendance will be recorded during your assigned live session. So like I said, when you log into that waiting room, it's already timestamped that you are there. Attendance is taken during the live session. When you actually get into the main area, always just get a habit of typing your name, your first and your last name, and your campus in the chat. Then take the time to check your screen name. A lot of times, if you're on devices, it I don't know how it works. It actually will pick up the name, I think, of the device or whatever. But make sure that you are taking the time to change and make sure your first and last name matches as it matches on Fortis's roster. Again, we don't want the attendance administrator saying, hey, Donald Duck wasn't in class. I looked at the video, I looked at the chat, wasn't there. There were a couple of people that did, names that didn't have, like it'll say iPhone or it'll say uh, it'll just have like a name of your phone. It'll say Galaxy. It'll say all those different things. But take the time to change your name, first and last name. And as I mentioned, if you're going through a name change, if it has not officially happened, use whatever name that's on that roster. Attendance is taken during the live sessions to be counted as present in class. Students must sign in with their full names. Be on camera the whole time. We do have breaks, and then during break time you can be off camera, but make sure when we're on that your camera is not pointing towards the ceiling. Ensure that you are visible. Anyone at work or driving will be removed from the session. Anyone not coming on camera after being asked to will be removed from the session as well. It is just not safe to be work or driving, and if you are in any of those prohibited places, at the doctor's office, the hospital, we don't want to violate HIPAA. So just, send that communication. It might be the absence that you'll have to take for that week, but we don't want to put you at risk or anyone else or your family members or anyone else by you being logged in and you at work and driving. So just, we don't want that. So anyone not coming on camera after being asked to will be removed from the session. So we'll put it in the chat. We don't usually stop and say, hey, Donald Duck, come on camera, put your message in the chat. But nevertheless, you know that you're supposed to be on camera. Adjust yourself so that you are being seen. Faculty will verify students' time in class by reviewing the log-in and log-out times on Zoom. So everything is timestamped. We print the roster. It shows what time you logged into the waiting room, what time you got into the main room. It shows when you logged out, if you logged back in. All those things are on there. So why is all that important? Because attendance missed will be recorded in 15-minute increments. So if I am late 2 minutes, that equals 15 whole minutes. Anyone without posting attendance 14 days in a row, which means 2 classes. We only meet once a week. So if a student misses twice, that equals 14 days, will be dropped without notification. And there's no makeup for missed attendance. So again, if we don't see your name in the chat, name and campus in the chat, the recording doesn't show that you're there, because we don't do no glitches and things happen sometimes. But what we can do, we can pull the recording, we can pull the chat. And if neither of those things can verify that you were there, then we can't verify that you were there. So that's missed attendance. So take the time to do that. Sometimes with Zoom, though, Zoom sometimes is so picky. And I think I don't want to say picky, it might just be with the upgrades. For the most part, sometimes it'll save your correct name, but sometimes it doesn't. So always look and make sure that your name is correct. So attendance policy, let me read through this right here. Attendance is taken daily in the class by the instructor and turned over to the registrar before the end of the class day. So once we finish, we upload the Zoom log and we upload all of that to the attendants or the registrars. Early departures, tardies, class cuts will be recorded in the quarter-hour increments. So that's why it's so important. Go ahead and log in, even if, the Zoom is usually open maybe 5, sometimes even 10 minutes prior to start time. Just go ahead and log in. That way you're there. You got time to go back and get yourself adjusted. Because what happens is, like I said, that 2 minutes being late, it turns into a whole 15 minutes. A period of less than 15 minutes will be counted as a quarter-hour absence. Attendance records are maintained by the registrar as part of the student's permanent academic record. Students with chronic absenteeism in excess of 20% of the scheduled hours for a course may receive a failing or reduced grade for the course. So Donald Duck came in and did all of their work, perfect scores, but then Donald Duck has an excess of 20% of being late or absent. What could possibly happen? Donald Duck possibly could fail the course or reduce. Donald Duck might have an A, but because of this excess of 20%, that A drops into a B, which drops your GPA. So just make sure that you are logging in on time. Get in that waiting area. It's not into the main class. Students who are absent more than 20% of the scheduled time will receive a full letter grade deduction at the end of the term. So, like I said, I know things happen. In the event that, you're driving home, I don't know, something happens to the tire, you're having to wait on AAA or someone to come. Take pictures of the tire, have things timestamped so you can have your documentations while you're late. So just make sure, and again, like I mentioned before, if classes or clinicals or they're too close together, you may want to change the date and time of one of your classes so that you don't run into this excess of 20% scheduled time, because 20% is not a lot, you all. And so it can build up pretty quickly. The online office will pull attendance weekly. A student who is at 5% of the scheduled time absent will receive an email through Campus View notifying you of the same. Okay, make sure you can get into Campus View. Make sure you can get into your course and make sure you can get into Outlook. So that notification will go to Campus View. A student who is at 10% scheduled time absent will be required to meet with me and the instructor. The student who is at 15% will be required to meet with the campus administration also. The level of intervention will be relying upon the amount of time missed, and a student may not receive all levels of warning prior to missing the 20%. So what is that saying? You might get these notifications or you might not. You might get a notification when you're at that 20%. So just make sure if it's all possible, log in on time. You have to be absent. Make sure you have your documentation, communicate what's going on, and have your documentation. If it's so, in the event that is needed, you will have it. Okay. So other learning activities, we do have that one-on-one tutoring. Send an email with dates and times in your time zone in the event that we need to meet up, and or some students send an email. We can do an email exchange. Oh, I have a question about this concept. It's spelled out clearly in the email and I can respond that way. So one-on-one can be via email. It could be, we don't have to jump on Zoom because sometimes Zoom is a, issue, trying to get on, besides class time, it's fine. But if you want to get on Zoom, that's fine. We have office hours. All that information is in the About the Instructor tab. Some students want to talk over the phone, but nevertheless, we are here to assist and provide that extra guidance if needed. Students, and it's documented. We've looked at our scores for the no, I know the past 3 or 4 years, and I want to say if there are two categories that comparing us to nationals, there I think just two that we're the same. All the rest of the categories we're outscoring nationals, and so it shows that students taking ownership of their learning by asking those questions, meeting up for tutoring, attending the live exam reviews. It shows because the testing scores are as many as 20 points higher. Okay, so how are things graded? You have the unit exams and the HESI exam. So 3 unit exams and that one HESI equals 80%. So that HESI counts as 20%. 20% is a lot. 60% comes from those 3 unit exams. Key graded assignments. So think about this. You have to have at least 78% without rounding. If it's 77.777, that is not 78% without rounding. So on these two, the unit exams and the HESI, the grade, it counts as that 80% of that 100. But that grade must average out to be at least 78% without rounding in order for the homework, which is the other 20% of that 100, to count. Now, these right here, you want them to be at least 78% as well. You have 5 quizzes, it count as 5%. That's a lot. Every point matters. You have a lesson, you have lesson assessments, they're 10%, and then there's professionalism. Being in class on time, responding, having your name tag on, all those things, it counts as 5%. Everything matters, you all. Just do your best. Do your best. And if there are issues, any issue, fill in the blank, whatever issue, please communicate that. So I know a lot of students don't like when we turn the grades on and off, but that's in the contract and that rule book. And so weeks 1 through 5, homework scores are usually off. Weeks 1 through 5, and then 8 through 12, they're off. So week 6, homework scores are turned on, and it just shows the impact of homework. But when those scores are turned on, go back to the previous slide. Well, 80% of that grade comes from those unit exams and that HESI. Do I have that 78% without rounding? And with my quizzes, my assessments, and the professionalism, do I at least have that 78% without rounding? And most of the time when we turn the homework scores on, yes, most of the time the scores go up high because it's averaging the 80% and that 20%. But then when we turn it back off, it goes back to just that 80%, the unit exams and the HESI. So then your grade will change. So it just shows the impact of what those homework assignments have on your key graded assignments. So it allows you to make that informed decision. I want to say I have to look at the syllabus sheet to see when the drop date is, but it allows you to determine, well, hey, what do I need to do different? Do I need to do that one-on-one tutoring? Do I need to change my study habits? I need to spend more time. And then also in the event, hopefully dropping is not an option. Hopefully it's not something that you need to consider, but it does allow you to make that decision. Homework scores will stay off until after the HESI exam is remediated. What does that mean? You take the HESI on week 11. That's the week that's more than likely is going to look different for you. So you're already thinking about what workplace, school, and all the responsibilities you have for that week. And then you take the HESI. You have that score. That score is not valid until you meet the requirement of the remediation time. Let me see. We got that on the slide here. It should be. If not, we post it. So in order for your remediation, your HESI score to be valid, you must meet the time requirement. So for example, if you made a 905, I think you have to commit to doing 1 hour, 60 minutes. So once you do that 60 minutes of remediation, if it populates you packets to do that hour, the whole idea is you want to provide that best care you can to your patient. You want to sit for NCLEX one time. You want to take this HESI and pass that one time. So that we're life learners as healthcare providers. So doing that remediation, it helps you to strengthen your foundation, add to your knowledge base. So you take the HESI, whatever that score is good, but you also must complete that time requirement. The example I gave, you made a 905, have to commit to at least an hour in there remediating. Okay, so your combined score on unit exams and the HESI must be 78% or above before any credit for the completed homework is given. That's why I was just saying about that 78%. It has to be outright 78% without rounding. Okay, go back over here. Okay, a minimum passing grade of a C, 78% is required for a successful completion of the course after the homework scores are added. So you must have that 78 with the 80%, the 3 unit exams and the HESI, and you must also have at least that 78% with the quizzes, the homework assignments, and all the rest of the assignments as well. 78 is going to be your number, not 77.77 or 77.99. Uh-oh. So every point matters. Just do your best on everything. Strive for that 100% mastery. Students have did this. You all have done just really, really well. When I said those HESI scores are almost perfect, it shows. It shows that you're taking that ownership and putting the time in. So you must have the 2 devices. Go ahead and get those devices and also those chargers, you all, because a lot of times we have these devices charged and we'll look around and then the battery will be halfway gone. So make sure you not only have the 2 devices, make sure you have the chargers. Go ahead and charge them up, but make sure you have the chargers also. If your camera goes off while in the exam, you will receive a 0 for the exam. No excuses will be accepted. So usually on exam day, we provide the reminder. Hey, if you have any of those special, I don't know, settings, there are some settings that turns your camera off in the event that it doesn't pick up any movement. You want to disable all of that stuff, because if your camera goes off while in the exam, you receive a 0 for the exam. No excuses will be accepted. So just make sure you disable any of that stuff, any of those settings that will turn things off in the event that it does not pick up any movement or activity. So ExamSoft, we should have access to it no later than the 3rd week, but for sure, I think sometimes it turns on during the 2nd week, maybe midway, but for sure by the 3rd week. And what happens is we put out a practice exam. Even if you are using the same devices that you've used last term, even if you have new devices, still go through the practice exam. And if you have changed sections, you all, make sure that the section in ExamSoft matches the section that you are in, because sometimes it doesn't happen often. For the most part, the practice exam, all of us have the same password, so you're able to get in and go through the practice exam. But then on exam day, when we give you the code, and if you have changed a section, does not happen often. Sometimes that section change doesn't roll over to ExamSoft. So when you go to put that code in that we give, it won't let you in. And then you look and say, we ask, well, hey, look at your section. Is it showing the section that you're in now? And for some reason, it didn't roll over. So just make sure, if you change sections for any of your classes, when ExamSoft is open, make sure you look at the section. Make sure it actually matches. So exams will be scheduled and given through ExamSoft. You log into Zoom, make sure you have your 2 devices, make sure they are charged, have your chargers, make sure you have your ID. You want to sign in to ExamSoft, read the exam description carefully so that you know what those requirements are. There's usually a time requirement that's there. Use that time. Don't let it run out, but use that time. Begin the exam when you're ready. When you are finished, click the save and upload. Now, there is a small delay when you click upload. and from the time that that exam actually uploads. So usually once it's fully uploaded, there's a check mark, but there's a small delay in time. So make sure you wait until it's usually two of us there on exam day. Make sure you get the okay from one of us that is okay to close that device up. Doesn't happen often, you all, but sometimes in the event if you close up before that exam has actually uploaded, it goes somewhere. We can find it, but it may take a couple of days for us to find it. So click upload, wait on the actual confirmation, and then wait on us to say, yes, we actually see it on our side. Okay. Be sure to log out of the testing site. Be sure you have both your computer and your second device fully charged, on or a charger before you come to class. Okay. You are only allowed one attempt. You cannot stop and pause and resume. If you're having technical difficulties, um, physical difficulties, emotional difficulties, whatever the issue is, you need to stop the exam and notify the instructor. There's usually always two of us there. Don't just notify us, stop and wait on a response. Exams may not be repeated to improve a grade. So if you have an issue, any issue that may impact your performance, talk to us before the exam and not after. So what that is saying, the least thing can happen is you take the exam on it within that 1 to 7, because you have to have that exam completed within 1 to 7 days also. Otherwise you will receive that 0. But if today is the day of the exam and I have an issue, whatever that issue is, communicate. What's the worst thing that can happen? You do your best on another day within the 1 to 7 day window. You do well. I mean, and that's good, right? So don't be afraid to communicate. Communicate early. But if I push on through and take the exam and say after the fact, well, I had this issue and I wish I would have said something because I know it affected how I did on my exam, but that eliminates any, thing that we can do because I've decided to push through and take the exam. So don't be afraid to communicate about whatever the issue is if there's an issue. Remember, the exams are timed as well. Use that time. Don't rush through, read through, use the time that you need. And then, of course, pay attention to the time because we don't want you to run out of time either on the exam. So if you have accommodations, please notify all instructors every term at the beginning of the term so that accommodations can be provided for you. If you think you need accommodations and you do not already have them, contact your campus dean. I am not sure what the application or the process is, but if that's something that you think you need to do your best, take ownership of your learning, communicate to your campus dean, see what the requirements are, and follow through with it. But once you get those accommodations or if you already have them, please send an email with that information in so that those accommodations can be provided. Notifications less than 10 days before an exam may not be able to be granted in time. There's a process that must be followed. So make sure you already have them. Go ahead and send that email tonight for sure before the week is over. And if it's something that you think you need, start that conversation this week so that that application process, I'm not sure how long it takes, but so that that is done for you. Exams are held during scheduled class time. Exceptions only with written approval by the faculty and copy to the National Online Dean. Some students have said, hey, it's a hindrance, it's a distraction for me to take the exam, at home where I'm usually at. So, and they put all this in writing and at least 72 hours prior to that, explaining, the reason why they're wanting to take the exam proctored on campus. And the reason we need that 72-hour notice is because we have to find a place because most of the time those buildings, something's happening in all the rooms, have to find a place and a person, a faculty member to proctor that exam to you. So, but if that's something that you need, we'll talk about our exam dates and times here shortly. Go ahead and be looking at your schedule. If your dog, your cat, I don't know, the whatever it is, a neighbor, whatever is a distraction, or that's just not a conducive setting for you to do your best on exam day, and you think that it's better for you to take that exam on campus, put it in writing. Include Dean Brown, myself in the email, and your campus dean as well, because they're the ones that's going to set up. They have to find someone in a place to for you to take that exam. Not taking an exam during scheduled class time will result in an absence. Lecture time is not able to be made up. So that's why you want to communicate early. Give this 72-hour notice, because if you know, for the most part, campuses are pretty much closed on this time of night. There might be one or two things going on. So know too that the exam will not be, if it's proctored on campus, it's going to be given prior to this time, because we're so late in the day. Exams are on Zoom as well as our classes. You must be on camera the entire time. We're going to disable any setting that's going to turn our camera off, because we don't want to receive a zero because our computer turned the camera on. Of course, you need your IDs every week anyway, so you have to show your ID. You have to do that complete testing environment, show that 360 view that includes desktops, walls, all sizes of computers, chairs, floors, and testing area. Of course, the sessions are always recorded. So it's recorded, showing that you're doing all those things. You must show your ears if they're covered. If a tester has religious exceptions, please ask to discuss this issue with your instructor. Appropriate accommodations will be granted. And do not assume that we know individual requirements. Go ahead and send that information to us every turn to all of your instructors.
Miss Ford,
Mm-hmm.
I sent you a message, but I'm currently on campus and they're getting ready to close for the night, so I have to leave.
Yes, I saw your message there. So I just need you to make whatever decision you need to. I can't tell you, what to do. I saw it.
Is it okay if I sit in my car and finish the class? I won't drive.
I need you to make what's the best decision for you.
I want to make sure that you're going to still keep me in the class, though.
I mean, you're logged in, but I'm not sure what the attendance administrators are going to go back to what the rule book says, and then they're going to, guide it. Is based on that. So going forward, that might be something that you need to, that's an example of a conflict. So do what you think, do best for today. And then that's a conversation you'll need to have with, your campus dean. You might have to change your class date and time. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Missed exams will be held to the late work policy. Exams missed without prior notice will be a zero. So if something's going on, things happen, you're all set for the exam, go ahead and send that message, make that phone call in the event that, something's going to prevent you from taking an exam that day. So it's documented. And so, we can see what the next steps are. Exams missed for personal reasons will result in a late penalty with notification. Exams missed due to an emergency will require documentation of the emergency. And an emergency is an emergency. It is, like I said, a tire, whatever it is. Just keep your receipts, take a picture, all of that information, because that information is given to the administrators, the campus deans, and they look at it, they compare it to whatever the contract says, the handbook, and then they go forward with making a decision about letting you take that exam, and if it's a 10% deduction or not. Okay. This documentation must be submitted to the national dean, which is Dean Darlene Brown. Notification must occur within 24 hours of the scheduled exam. Documentation must be presented prior to the exam being rescheduled. Yes, they're going to want to see that documentation. They have to see it. Any exam not rescheduled within 7 days of the class will result in a zero on that exam. So just take the time to reach out, and so that guidance is given. Contact your instructor with issues that may prevent you from being successful on the exam before the exam, so that we can seek out a solution. I might not have the answer, but I'll move it up and ask Dean Brown, Professor Burke, and in the campus deans, what is a resolution, so that we can work with you. Contacting your instructors with issues after you have submitted the exam has removed any ability of us being able to work with you. The example that I gave, I was working through my exam, my internet kept going out, but I just kept logging back in and just pushing through. I never said anything to the instructor that I was having connectivity issues. And then I got a score that was less than 78%. That's after that. So there's nothing that we can do to help resolve other than giving guidance for the next exam. Please let us know about those issues because I wouldn't want it to be that you push through and you were selecting A for number one, and because of the connectivity issue, it was marking B, and so it would affect your score. You never know with those connectivity issues. It's just best to just stop and let us validate what's going on, and then take that exam maybe at the end of the class or the next day or whatever. Because we do want you to be successful. We need to think through everything, communicate it, and we'll seek a solution. Okay. We talked about technical issues. Again, do not continue or try to continue if you're having technical issues. Because if you push through, that score is that score. You want to notify us. There's usually two of us there, like I mentioned earlier. And usually what we'll do is take you to the breakout room. Sometimes it is, like I say, most of the time it's just that connectivity. If it's exam soft, they pretty much can they've been fixing things pretty quickly. But usually we catch things when we run through that practice exam. So it's very important that you do that. Things faculty administration will do. Verify issues by reviewing the log. Review the number of times the student stopped, viewing the testing site, view how much time the student used of the allotted time. Like all of this stuff is timestamped. So it's in there. It sees what you're doing. Review how many questions were seen. Allow or give a code to reassess an exam once. Sometimes the exam software will ask you to ask for a code, and you just put it in the chat. It's asking me for a code. We'll give you that code, and you should put it in, and it'll keep going. Things faculty will not do. Allow a retake on an exam due to technical problems or physical issues or emotional issues when the majority of all questions have been answered by the student and or time has run out. So just please let us know, what's going on. Don't get in that exam and then, answer all of the exam and say, hey, well, I had a headache or I had this going on. That's after you've gotten the score. Please, let's be proactive. So we're at the top or the bottom. I don't know how to say it about first hour, you all. So we're going to pause here and take a 5-minute break. See you in 5. And just so you know, the recording still plays. So make sure that, you can turn your cameras off, but just make sure that I just want you to know this recording is.
Are we taking a break? Because where she went? Yes, we're on a 5-minute break. 5? Yes. She didn't tell us that, but thank you.
So we have about 45 seconds. So we all return. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We almost finished with this orientation PowerPoint. Then we'll start looking in our course shell. So we have that one specialty exam. Specialty exams are given in a proctored environment. These are going to be campus specific. So even though we're in the same class, your campus may offer this HESI on Mondays. Another campus may offer it on Friday, but it is proctored on campus. There is only one attempt at the HESI. You will have an assigned date and time for the exam, usually no later than the 10th week, but usually the end of the ninth week, each campus starts sending out dates and times. And so make sure the information that you are receiving is for your campus. Don't make a decision based on your HESI, based on what someone is saying that they're doing on their campus. Even though it's the same exam, it might be given a different date and time. This exam counts for the 20% of the testing grade. Remember that 80% is 20 of that 80. And the benchmark is 900. Okay. So the lessons are in SurePath. They cover key points from your reading assignments. Lessons include text, micro quizzes, osmosis videos, and assessments that test your knowledge through as you work your way through the lesson. Your instructors will have access to the dashboard that displays your performance and your time spent on each lesson. Everything is timestamped. Activities and assessments for each lesson must be completed. You can repeat the assessment and submit your highest score up until the due date. After the due date, your first attempt will be recorded as your grade, and the late policy will apply. The lesson assessment represents 10% of the grade. So let's go back to this highlighted part right here. So you can repeat that assessment as many times as you need to. That highest score will show up within that due date. After that due date, what will be graded is what you did on your first attempt. And then also that late policy will apply. So, mark your calendars, get things on the calendar so you can complete within that due date. Don't want to lose any points, because what it does, it goes back to that first attempt. So there are 5 quizzes, and they're adaptive. So it's supposed to help build upon that, strengthen your knowledge about the concept. They're adaptive. And we'll cover the concepts from the reading assignments. There are 50 questions on each quiz. Quizzes are personalized / adaptive and will help increase your mastery of the content. You will need to use the basic geriatric nursing textbook to research any answers or questions. The quizzes are taken at home and they are not proper. They must be taken in one session. You will only have that one attempt to complete that 50 question quiz, one attempt. And remember, the quizzes, there are 5, and it includes 5% of the grade. Every point matters, so you want to do your best on those. Okay, so this professionalism evaluation, it is a weekly score or grade. Professionalism is a key component of your success in the academic environment and in your career. Your instructor will submit a weekly assessment of your professionalism in Canvas based on these qualities: your attendance, communication, the respect for diverse perspectives. You want to adhere to the guidelines, engagement, and responsibility. Remember, these sessions are recorded, so just make sure that our responses are appropriate and that we're being respectful. This feedback is intended to help you measure your progress and identify any areas that may need improvement. Our goal is to support you in developing the professionalism skills that are necessary for future success. It goes beyond just this classroom. It is needed for your career. The professional evaluations represent that 5%. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it is. You want to make sure that you get all your points you out because every point matters. Okay. So now let's switch and let's look at our Canvas shell. So again, make sure you have access to your Canvas, Campus View, and your Outlook Mail. Now, if you don't have access to your Outlook Mail, contact your campus dean. I believe, not really sure on this part, but the campus dean could direct regarding um, gaining access to your Outlook Mail. Okay. So someone did ask about, mention about the iPhones. They is an automatic process of it turning off. So you may want to use a different device if you can. And someone said, try do not disturb. I'm not sure if that will actually cause the camera not to go off. So just make sure. You might want to send a message in to the help desk just to make sure that that will actually help because you don't want that camera to go off. All right, so let's look at our syllabus here. So usually on Sundays, that's where your announcements will be posted, usually every Sunday. But you do want to check the announcement section often because if there are any updates or anything, that's where it will put it there. But generally it's on Sunday. But if something happens in between then it will be posted in the announcement section. So this is your syllabus here. And let me just do it. Let's do this view. So it goes over all of the objectives, your required readings. Let me say this right here. When you log into your Canvas shell, make sure that your editions, third edition, eighth edition, make sure that your editions match for your books. Because in the required readings, it might say turn to page, refer to the chart on page 5. And if you have the incorrect edition, page 5 might be different in your book. So it doesn't happen often. Every once in a while, the incorrect edition for a book is in your course shell. So take the syllabus and make sure that these match. And if it does not, we'll have to let your campus dean know. So it's usually just a easy fix. I think the help desk, they usually help with that. But just make sure it seems like a small thing, but if it's a required reading and you're needing to look at a chart or some material in your page, it doesn't match, then you're not able to look at it. So this right here was on the PowerPoint. It just shows you that 80% again, and then the other 20. Okay. So this is the same thing that is in your module view. It's just it has a different view. So it's just showing you what the required readings are, the learning objectives, and then the assignments week by week, which is the same information that is listed. What are modules? That's listed here. It's just a different view. And when we put the weekly announcements, it's just is another view of looking at that same information, the different tasks that that you'll be looking at as well. Okay, I think we made it to the end of the syllabus. So we will be posting the exam schedule, the exam review schedules. There are, I think, 5 of us. So you will have the opportunity to, at a minimum, commit to actually going back and listening and looking at the live exam reviews. If you can, attend as many of them as you can. They are not mandatory. They just are strongly encouraged. And come with your questions. Even before then, if you have a question about a concept, go ahead and send that information so that you can gain understanding of it. Let's see here. Let me pull up the schedule here. Okay, I can actually go ahead and post it for us in the announcements section. Oh, I didn't show you all the instructor tab about your instructor. So if you need to quick reference, it's under the modules tab. So our email address and the contact information is there. Yeah, so right there. Therefore, that's a quick reference for you to find that. So let me pull up the exam schedule. So for our class meets on Wednesday, I don't think we have do we have a holiday on Wednesday this term? I don't think so. But for those of you that do have a class that there's a holiday on a Monday, you will receive, your information about, that content and everything. If you have like an exam, you'll receive instructions about what to do. Okay, I'm pulling up the exam review schedule. I'm going to post this in the shell as well, but I'll go ahead and show it to you. I will place this in the announcement section so that you can plan early and be thinking about, if you can attend one of the live exam reviews. So there's one, two, three, four. There are actually seven of us. I was thinking just five. There's seven of us. And I'll put this in the announcement section so you can look at the dates and times. But the dates and times are there and the Zoom information. So we have a variety. You might can make one or two. That's fine. If not, please commit to actually going back and looking at not only the recordings, but go back through your classroom recordings also. Because we know you all have different schedules, you have clinicals and all that. So we try to, offer them as a variety. And so with the exams too, remember that there's the last class takes their exam. And then we take our exam on Wednesday. There's still other classes that have to take their exam. And then you want that exam analysis to take place. And then scores are posted then. So go ahead and be thinking about if you need your ID, if you need a new ID, if you need a dry erase board, if you need that marker, if you need one of those clear sheet protectors, be thinking about what is it that you will need. I'll go ahead and post this while we're here so you can look at that. But like I say, in the event that there's a concept that you have a question about, you don't have to wait until the live exam review. You can go ahead and ask that question early on. Okay. All right. Are there any questions? If not, we'll move on we'll start looking at our content. Okay, just trying to paste here. Okay. So it's there for you to go back and look at. All right. So our first concepts are talking about trends and issues. So I'll share my screen here. So our learning objectives, who are the elderly in America? What are the different perspectives on aging? Like who pays? How is healthcare paid for? And there's this end of life choices. What happens? What are people's options? Do we carry out their wishes? And if so, what guides us? Are the end of life choices, are there documents that guides us? Are those documents legal? Then we have to talk about abuse and neglect also. So population health, the health of groups of people composed of physical, social, economic environments, it includes everything because it's just not one thing that makes up our or affects our health. It is my environment. It is, my physical limitations or not. It's all of those things. So we need to consider that. Here we're talking about a group of adults age 65 or older for the older population or the older adults or geriatrics. There are different concepts about the connection between health and the older person. So what about is it too late to prevent a disease? Should we be promoting health? Yes, we still should be promoting that, putting that information out there. If we can prevent a disease process, one thing that comes to mind right off is the flu and what's the other one? Pneumonia. We know when those seasons come up, we put the information out. We encourage people to, use good respiratory hygiene, cover your mouth, wash your hands. And if you feel like you're sick, stay away from others. And also, you may want to increase your physical activity, all those things. And so, you're never too young or old to promote health and also to try to prevent disease prevention. So, population health, we have all these moving parts, and all of them are just as important. The new thing that is really affecting, or we really haven't seen the effects of just yet, but as of January 1, the policy that affects health insurance. So, December, a person could have had health insurance that allowed them to go to the doctor to visit their healthcare provider and also to get the screenings, the blood work done, the MRIs or whatever was necessary. But because of health policy, now that person might not have all of that available to them. It's available, but that person might have to pay out of pocket rather than rely on their insurance to help offset that cost. So does that not have an effect on people's lives? Yes, it does. So all of this health promotion, a person might not have known, hey, I need to cover my mouth if I'm coughing or sneezing. But that health promotion, they might not have known I need to increase my water if it's not contraindicated. I need to put on sunscreen when I go outside. They might not have known that helps prevent or could prevent skin cancers. So all of these things are very important to the population's health. Okay. So let's look at this screen right here and see if you can. So on your paper, we'll give you about 3 minutes to read through. And on your paper, jot down, you can do 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then just put what letter goes with which. Let me set my little timer here. Let's give you 3 minutes to read through. And then on your paper, and then we'll talk through them together. So just do a little jot on your paper. So read each definition and try to identify the term that goes with the definition. So on your paper, do the jot note. I'm trying to get my little timer pulled up here. The medical specialty that deals with the physiology of aging and with the treatment of diseases affecting older adults. The fear of aging and refusal to accept older adults into mainstream society. The study of all aspects of aging process, including clinical, psychologic, economic, and sociologic problems of older adults. And then nursing care and services provided to older adults. Takes on a holistic view of aging with a goal of increasing health, comfort, and caring for the adults. So on your paper, you should have jotted down 1, 2, or 3, or 4, and then match the term. Okay, let's see how we got 30 seconds. Give you a little bit more time. Let's see how did we do. Okay, 8 seconds. And okay, so now let's check, see how it should do. Although timer's still going. Okay. All right. So the medical specialty that deals with the physiology of aging and with the treatment of the diseases affecting the older adults. That is geriatrics. So, what part of this word right here is a root word of that we could if we didn't really know what this word meant, what word or what letters or what word in this complete word could we have kind of made an association, kind of figured out what it was?
Phobia.
Phobia, which means what?
Fear.
So that's a test taking strategy. Sometimes you might not can recall what that concept is right off. Look and see if there's any parts of the word, even Gero. You're like, but for sure, phobia. That's one that a lot of it, we're accustomed to. We've heard that word before. So test taking strategy. Try to sift through the scenario, see is there anything that's familiar. Because sometimes you go blank. Wait a minute, I know the concept, but that helps you to refocus. And yes, so that is the fear of aging. All right. And then, so the study of all aspects of the aging process, gerontology, and then gerontox. And I always get twisted up saying this word. Someone pronounce it for me.
Geriatrics.
Thank you. What she just said. There's some words I tell you just get twisted up, but yes. So that's the nursing care and the services provided to the older adults, and hopefully you have, as you go through I don't know if this is you all's last semester or not, term, but as you've journeyed through your different clinical settings, hopefully you have been jotting down, your top four, and know that those things may change. And even, you may choose it as a career, but then after you get your career established, you may actually go back and do some other work. So just be thinking about all these different aspects and parts of providing care in the different populations, whether or not it's based on age, whether or not it's based on a disability or whatever, what have you. So I like to be good stewards of your time. I will keep going through the PowerPoint, but we do actually have 15 more minutes of break time. So we want to be good stewards of your time. So myth or fact, all older adults are frail and have poor health. Most older adults live in a nursing home. Older adults have higher rates of depression than younger adults. Most older adults are poor. The greatest fear of most older adults is loss of income. Is each one of those statements a myth or is it a fact? Is it true or false? So we'll pause and give you time to do your little jot note, and then we'll check it here in just a minute. We'll give it a minute. Set my little timer. Okay. So all of them are myths. Just because a person is older in age does not mean that they're poor, does not mean that they have higher rates of depression. It does not mean that they automatically live in a nursing home. All those things are not true. Okay. So the scope of the aging population. 2018, there were 52.4 million people, or 16% of the population, that were 65 or older. Okay. So look at what they expect for 2040. The population age 65 and older is expected to increase to 80.8 million people. Because think about it, the thing we have advances in technology with health promotion and chronic disease prevention. People are finding out earlier on, if they're at risk for something, if they have diabetes, if they had, because there's a such thing as pre-diabetes or pre-hypertension. Before, it wasn't. So people pretty much just found out they had high blood pressure after they may have had a stroke. But because technology has been enhanced, knowledge has been enhanced. And so, and we're doing that health promotion. So people are starting early on. They're catching disease processes before damage is done to the body, to the organs. And as a result of that, people are living longer, healthier lives. Attitudes about aging and ageism. An emotional prejudice or discrimination against people based solely on age. The dislike of aging and the older people based on the belief that aging makes people unattractive, unintelligent, and unproductive. There are some older adults that when they tell you their age, you're like, what? You want to check yourself. It's like, what? So is that what 88 looks like? Wow. So no, they're not unattractive. Some, you couldn't even imagine what their real age is. So attitudes about aging and age discrimination reaches beyond emotions and leads to actions, results in different treatment of older people simply because of their age. Now, there are some that don't want to take the time, if, the lady or the gentleman, they're going into the store, they're taking their time walking, maybe because they may have a physical limitation, so they're not as able to walk as fast. And so, do we take the time to stay behind them or do we cut them off? What is it? What is our response? We should not be putting them at harm or either ourselves at harm just because they're not walking as fast as we think that they should walk. Okay. Ageism or age discrimination. There are people that are, still working that are well into their 70s. They said they need something to do, and they said that keeps them going. So they get up and hit that clock just like the rest of us. Gender and ethnic differences. Women currently outlive men by approximately 2.6 years. So there's someone out there that gathers all this data. And what the statistic shows is that women outlive men by almost 3 years. Whites tend to live longer than blacks. Hypertension and stroke are prevalent due to genetic predisposition, and disparities are declining due to improved healthcare. We are finding out, like I said early on, people are finding out whether they have pre-hypertension or they're at risk for developing pre-hypertension or diabetes. So people start to make those lifestyle changes early on. And so as a result of that, they live to be, well over into 80s and 90s without many health issues or concerns. So this slide right here just looks at the different incomes. So they're because the healthcare that we're receiving, who pays for it? The person. If you've reached the age 65 and older, many times there are pensions, there are Social Security benefits and other payer sources, other than the person that actually pays for the healthcare that they actually receive. So housing arrangements, they have all these different type housing arrangements now. So a lot of times, people they don't want the responsibility of the house anymore. When all the children were at home, people were moving around and it was just, it was needed, but the space isn't needed anymore. The children are grown and they're no longer living there. So a lot of times, older adults will downsize. And so they have all these different places available for them to actually live. Just because you're in a nursing home, it does not mean that you're receiving skilled care. There are plenty of people that live in that nursing home because they just say, hey, I've just outgrown my house. I don't need, the 2-bedroom. I don't need all of that responsibility of cutting the grass. So they can go to these independent and assisted living facilities. They have all these different facilities. They even have, it's sort of like the daycare, the adult daycare, where even if the older adult lives with their children, They're able to go to these facilities during the daytime. And then once, the children come back home, they go back home with the child. But it gives them something to do and be involved. Because usually at those adult daycares, they do have programs and things for them to do while they're there. So Medicare, who pays for this, the healthcare services that they're receiving. Medicare is for those older adults, 65 and older. Now, there are some individuals that are less than 65 that Medicare pays for, but they have to have those certain disabilities. But Medicare has a part A, B, C, and D. The D part pays for the drugs, the medications. A is in the hospital services, and then B is outpatient. So A is inpatient, B is outpatient. And then C, Medicare is an example of Part C. An example of Part C is Medicare Advantage. Those are those Medicare benefits through private insurance companies. Okay. Medical costs of end-of-life care. A fourth of all Medicare funds are spent on services for patients in their last years of their life. Questions are being raised about the appropriateness or using intensive or expensive interventions to extend the lives of terminally ill or older patients. So it's going to depend on what that person decides, their autonomy. They have a choice to say, hey, I want these measures taken, or I do not want these measures taken. They have the right to say, hey, I want my daughter or my friend. They can name the person that they want to make those decisions for them during the end of life. And there are programs out there that would pay for those services. So the impact of aging members in the family is what we call the sandwich generation, trying to work, raise children, and care for parents and even grandparents. Because think about the previous slide, the life span has increased. So we have not only just parents and grandparents, you may have great grandparents. So it sure is that sandwich generation. The impact of aging members in the family, roles changes in grandparenting. Most people say that, the parent, they didn't treat me like that when I was a child. They were much harder or stricter or had a different set of rules than they did for the child versus the grandchild. Okay, so let's look at this situation right here. It says, think like a nurse. Let's look at this scenario. The adult daughter of an older home health client tells the nurse, I feel like my husband and I never have any alone time anymore. We love taking care of our mother, but it gets frustrating at times. Which services should the nurse recommend? Select all that apply. Okay. Subacute care facility. So test taking tip. As you read each answer choice, you can say, well, hey, is this true or false? So identify the concept or the concepts that's in the scenario. And it says select all that apply. So we're selecting all that apply. We're going to select answer choices that are true or correct about the concept. Okay. All right. And so, which services should the nurse recommend? The caregiver support group, the senior community center, and the respite care. So respite care, in the event that the family members, they're going on vacation or they just need that time away, that person can be admitted into a skilled nursing facility. Usually it's like 5 or 7 days. That person is admitted there, but they're really not a patient because they're just there for that respite care so that their loved ones or whatever can complete whatever task or get the whatever it is that they need. Okay. So here we have another case study, caregiver stress. Ella is a full-time caregiver for her 82-year-old mother. Everything was going well until Bia began wandering in the neighborhood, losing her belongings and forgetting her family's name. She has recently been incontinent of urine and gets combative when Ella tries to help her change her clothes. What are the risks in this situation? What are the priorities we need to address? Then think about we have, like, what's the solution? What services would be available or should be available, or should we be, as that community health nurse, trying to seek out to see if there are any resources in that community to help. Okay. So let's go back to the scenario here. So she's wandering around the neighborhood. She's losing things. She may even forget where the house is if this patient is forgetting. They're incontinent. They're at risk for the skin breaking down, and they're combative. They might not fully understand that someone's actually trying to help them, and they may think it's harm. So it could mean an injury for the patient as well as the person that's trying to help them. Okay. So abuse and neglect. Physical abuse is causing physical pain or injury. Emotional abuse equals isolating, ignoring, or depersonalizing an older adult. The call light keeps going on. And we just keep going, the staff keep going and turn it off. That's ignoring that client, that patient. Stealing or misusing their resources. The patient might have a debit card. Someone gets the debit card and goes shopping. That's financial abuse. We're misusing the client's or the patient's finances. Neglect is a passive form of abuse in which caregivers fail to provide for the needs of the older person under their care. Abandonment. Dependent older person is deserted by the person or whoever is responsible for their care under circumstances in which a reasonable person would continue to provide that care. We talked about this reasonable person. So in the same or similar situation, we have these 5 people and we ask them what would they do. If those 5 people or even 4 people would say, hey, we would continue to provide care, and then you have this example where this person did not provide care, then that's considered as abandonment. Because in a similar or same circumstances, what would that reasonable person do that would continue to provide care? So abusive behavior in the healthcare settings, physical harm or rough handling, make sure when we're having to turn and reposition clients, make sure we have enough staff. Call that extra person in. If it says on their care plan they need 2 persons for assist, but we actually might need 3 or 4, call the extra help in, because if we are not using the appropriate number of people to assist in turn and reposition, it may appear that we're rough handling someone. Use good body mechanics. Use of sedatives or psychotropic medications that are not medically necessary. You hear a nurse on staff say, hey, I'm going to give all my patients on my team a sleeping pill. Well, it's not routinely ordered, and also the patient is not asking for it. So that's a chemical restraint. They're using a sedative to restrain that person. Use of restraints that are not medically indicated. Violation of the residents' rights to make decisions. Usually in the skilled nursing facilities, they have those rights posted along the hallways. We don't want to use any derogatory language. And for sure, we're not taking any of the patient's belongings or their food. Okay, we are mandated reporters as nurses. We do not have to confirm the abuse or know all the details, but if there is some suspicion, we are mandated reporters. We should be reporting that information, and the authorities or the appropriate people will actually do the investigation. All right, so we have another little scenario here. We have an emergency room nurse is admitting an 80-year-old patient whose caregiver brought her in for evaluation. The nurses notes that the patient looks fearful during the interview, and the caregiver answers all the questions for her. What type of abuse would the nurse suspect? So you have this patient, which is 80 years old, and you have their caregiver. So while the nurse is doing the interview, the caregiver answers all the questions, not even giving that. It's not that the 80-year-old patient doesn't want to answer. The caregiver is just answering for her. And also the facial expressions, the body language, the gestures looks like that this 80-year-old person is fearful or afraid or scared. So what type of abuse would the nurse expect? Suspect. Okay, emotional. Okay. Fear of being treated even worse or fear of being institutionalized or abandoned may prevent the victim from speaking out. They may be just fearful of what might happen to them. So they just would, not say anything about what's really going on. Okay. So we do have chapter 2 has some theories of aging. Why are theories important? They help the nurse recognize the problems in the aging patients. They're like a little guide. The theories help nurses educate patients about the aging process. Again, it helps us to promote that health promotion, and then it helps older adults to meet those developmental tasks of aging. Okay, so we have biologic and psychosocial. What are those physical changes that a person experiences as they get older? What are those psychosocial? Are they having problems completing tasks? And if they are, what are those things, those interventions that we need to do to ensure? It may be that here in the picture, the person is planting flowers or repotting flowers. So this person is sitting in a chair. Normally it's probably done standing up, but if we can bring a chair so this person still is active, that's what we will provide that. So the gene theory proposes the existence of harmful genes that activate over time, resulting in the changes of aging and limiting the lifespan of the individual. It's not that this person did anything wrong. It's not that they ate the wrong foods. It's not that they, chose the wrong lifestyle. It's just the way that their genetic makeup. And because of those genes over time, that person will experience the limited lifespan. So program theory, everyone has a biological timeline to follow that is determined by their genetic makeup. Those genes they have a huge impact. So free radicals, unstable molecules produced by the body that causes cellular damage and contribute to aging. Antioxidants, we hear this word quite a bit. Vitamins and other compounds that are thought to reduce the activity of free radicals. So we have these free radicals roaming around and they're causing harm. So what is believed about antioxidant, it helps to prevent harm that could be caused by those free radicals. Okay. The body's like a machine which loses function when parts wear out. You've heard of people saying that, for example, knees, they're bone on bone, where that cartilage has worn away, or even the hips. As people age, cells and tissues and organs, they're damaged either from outside sources or internal sources. So, going back to good body mechanics, wearing that protective personal equipment. For example, if you go on a job and they say, well, hey, you need this type of shoes, you need to wear this type of clothing. It is all to reduce or decrease that wear and tear from those those outside, those internal, those external stressors. Okay. So good health maintenance practices decreases wear and tear. Decreases wear and tear. So we have the immunologic theory, we have the neuroendocrine theory. The immune system weakens over time, making an aging person more susceptible to disease. That immune system, that's that immunologic theory. And then we have that neuroendocrine. With age, the hypothalamus of the brain becomes less efficient as regulating hormones. So it's kind of like slows down as a result of that. The hormones are not regulated as they normally would be. What happens as a result of that? Physical changes like decreased muscle mass and increased body fat. You may have heard someone say, well, I used to could, lift however many pounds, but over time, that decreased muscle mass has an effect. So we have the activity theory. Mental and physical activity are necessary for successful aging. Purposeful activities promote self-esteem and improve quality of life. The having Hurst theory defines specific tasks for late life that involves adjusting to physical changes, retirement, and personal loss. The goal of successful aging is to accept one's own life and to adjust the idea of death, to adjust to the idea of death. So here we're looking at Erickson's theory, has 8 stages. Okay, older adults. So we have infancy. So this is like the reverse. So this goes with here, the toddler, autonomy, and shame versus doubt. And as they get older, then the older adult, integrity versus despair. We want to maintain that dignity and seek out any resources so that these patients can be as independent as possible, but also safe. Also safe. Okay. So we're going to pause here and let you match. So you can write 1, 2, 3, and 4, the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you can place the letter with the matching number that corresponds with the name of the theory. So I'll give you a few minutes to read through and jot that down. Okay, and all right. So the free radical theory, toxic substances called free radicals cause cellular destruction. Remember, we talked about those antioxidants are discussed that helps prevent the harm caused by those free radicals. Then we have the program theory. Aging occurs according to a program timeline. Okay. And then we have the immunologic theory. The immune system weakens, making us more susceptible to illnesses and infection over time. Okay, then we have the wear and tear theory. Over time, damage to cells and tissues and organs makes the body wear out. Just over time. Like I mentioned, the where people say, well, my cartilage, I have bone on bone inside of, with my joints. So a lot of times it's recommended that they get a knee replacement or a hip replacement. All right.